I am still Bronwyn Maddox of Chatham House, as I was in the last session. A very warm welcome to Matthew Whittaker, Ambassador Matthew Whittaker, Permanent Representative of the US to NATO. Thanks for joining us. We have just about 25 minutes. Welcome. It is very hard to avoid the question of the national security strategy of the US, which came out yesterday, and I was on a plane, very well connected with Wi-Fi, and the news of this went up and down the aisles with some attention and comment. And I wondered what you thought of the reaction of, for example, Europeans who feel that the US is sounding tougher on them than it is on countries formerly regarded as enemies like Russia.
I don't think that's a great characterization. We couldn't be far further apart here, by the way. There's a physical separation.
Yes, there is. I think it's for dramatic purposes, but there is a gulf there.
It's very impactful.
Not intended in any symbolic way.
Yeah, I think the national security strategy confirms really what's been happening over the first year of the Trump administration, and that is a refocus on the Western Hemisphere, a focus on the homeland, a focus on Asia Pacific, and a belief, what I've been trying to accomplish since I arrived at NATO in April, of having Europe and our European allies step up and take over the conventional defense of the European continent. And all of it, is in stark black and white language. I think there is a soberness to the text that says kind of where we're at. Now, remember, the national security strategy ultimately will drive the national defense strategy, which will then drive force posture review and how we're deployed across the globe. And so this is kind of the first shoe to drop in that conversation. But nothing is, for me, new in this. I mean, it talks about that our allies that are rich European countries need to do more, that they have underspent over the last several decades, and they need to spend a lot more on their own defense and therefore the collective defense. And I think that's the headline. And then, it also talks about kind of this concept is Europe a dynamic economy that can grow, or is it just a museum that is a relic of the past and we just go to see the cathedrals and the lovely wines and cheeses and beers and waffles in the case of Brussels?
Let's take the argument about Europe needing to spend more as one. I remember it going on for decades, as you say, and American generals and politicians down the years of whatever, in the case of politicians, whatever political stripe, making that case. Let's take it as one. Europe accepts that. But there are things in there that made Europeans wonder whether the US still regarded them as an ally, particularly the focus on encouraging resistance to what is portrayed as a kind of cultural decline, the support from the US for nationalistic parties, interpreted as meaning those of the right. That seems incompatible with US kind of leading NATO and yet asking those countries to be allies within NATO. That seems hostile, as many governments have taken it, to the existing governments of Europe.
Yeah, well, once again, I think the strategy speaks for itself. What I can tell you from my position at NATO is that we are trying to make sure that, if we say we share values as an alliance, if that's our initial organizing principle was that we were like-minded, we shared a similar culture, we shared similar values. I think the national security strategy tries to capture that from a how do we have an America first national security, and what's that look like? And obviously, from President Trump's perspective, this is a reflection of where he's coming from. I can tell you that as I travel around the alliance, and I've been in the last 3 weeks, I was in Spain, I was in Germany, I was in Finland, I was in Italy, and I was in Lithuania for Thanksgiving with our troops. And everywhere I go, I talk about how The United States is going to continue to be a great ally and a great friend, but we have expectations. It is no longer a one-way street, and we're going to have expectations not only about picking up the conventional defense of the European continent, but also in implementing things that our shared values should drive, things like free speech. You saw the EU's fine of X that happened in the last couple days. And I think there are many examples where sort of traditional values that we still hold dear in the United States that are enshrined in our Constitution are not necessarily valued as much in Europe. And that this document, I think, captures some of that, and puts it in the conversation of how it affects and how it weakens cultures, how it weakens countries, and how it ultimately will weaken their own sovereignty.
We could get into a kind of ping pong about perceptions of free speech in either country, but as you were speaking, I was thinking of President Trump's suggestion to an ABC reporter that the license of ABC ought to be withdrawn because he didn't like the question that she asked of the Saudi Crown Prince in the Oval Office. So as I said, the perceptions go both ways. Let me ask you another thing about NATO and these principles, though. This has been an uneasy year for many NATO countries, and one of those most discomforted has been Canada, when the president mused on whether it might be good for the United States to take over Canada. And Canadians have said, look, is this really compatible with NATO for a start? What do you, as representative to NATO, say to that?
Well, this is one of the things I learned when I was Attorney General of the United States in the first Trump administration, is providing commentary to every single thing that President Trump says or tweets, especially. What he says and what he tweets speaks for itself, and why he's doing it. And I certainly understand his position on Canada, which was, if you think about how Canada trades with the United States. It is very difficult for example, our dairy farmers, or at least it has been. Again, the negotiations are ongoing, and who knows where it lands. But the practices and the trade that Canada has done takes dramatic advantage of their proximity, takes dramatic advantage of our free and open markets, and closes markets to many things. And as a son of Iowa, and a heart for farmers, I understand that those kind of not having markets where we can send oftentimes our commodities that are high quality and inexpensive comparatively, that disadvantages American farmers. And if you're an America First president, you want to advantage all your citizens, and including farmers. And so, President Trump, I think, uniquely understands leverage. He uniquely understands how to publicly message things, to put issues that have maybe not been talked about enough into the conversation. And I think it's really put Canada, I think, in a difficult spot. I don't think our trade relationships, and this is one of the things that I made sure didn't bleed in, whether it was the trade discussions with the EU or whether it's trade discussions with Canada, I did not let that bleed into the security architecture of the North Atlantic, and how we are going to protect our 1 billion citizens and make sure that we have a strong alliance, and that strength is going to ensure not only our security but ensure peace. And so, sort of a lot of the issues regarding trade, just not my, remit, and we have plenty of people that deal with that on a daily basis that are better to talk about kind of any individual country or trading bloc.
Yes, I wasn't speaking of Canada purely in terms of trade, though you've answered it that way. Let me switch to Ukraine, and the previous session here was about Ukraine and what would take us towards a durable peace. Do you think that there is a risk that a deal with Russia at this point rewards it for taking territory by force?
No, I don't, because ultimately, whatever the deal that's made is going to have to be agreed to by both sides, mediated by the United States. Certainly, we've seen, just today I was reading that Umarov has been with Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner for the last 3 days in Miami, and they had just got back from Moscow. And so I think this is how negotiations work, how shuttle diplomacy works, and this is probably our best chance. We're closer than we've ever been to peace. And this is, as President Trump has said, this is a tough situation to get to the right spot. And ultimately, this war needs to end. It's been going on for almost 4 years with millions of casualties and real devastation to a country, Ukraine, which I just visited 4 weeks ago myself, and met with all the key people. I went over to Kharkiv to see firsthand sort of how technology, especially, is being deployed on the battlefield, and how Ukraine's, continuing to, fight back against this, Russian invasion. And but we should all be, encouraging peace to work. Obviously, it's not going to be peace at any cost, because ultimately, the Ukrainians are going to have to agree to any deal that's struck, and the Russians are going to have to demonstrate that they actually want to end this war.
Should NATO members, I'm thinking of the European ones particularly, be confident that NATO would come to their defense if Russia, subsequent to any deal, invaded their territory or threatened it?
Absolutely. Article 5 is ironclad, but as I often say, Article 3 comes before Article 5, which says that each member country is going to contribute not only to the collective defense, but their individual defense. And so we need everybody to continue to invest. But especially on the eastern flank, which would be the most likely place for, if Russia were to make a foolish mistake and try to challenge the NATO alliance. I mean, Finland is a rock star when it comes to providing for their own defense, and population-wise, not a huge country, but they have a all of country approach, all of society approach that really many of us could learn from. And then the Baltics, they're all at 5% already, if not this year, then next year. Poland, certainly a very strong country militarily and continues to get stronger. And all down the line, I was just in Romania several weeks ago, where I saw a fast deployment of French troops to Romania to exercise. And Turkey obviously has the largest army in NATO. And so I feel good about where we are, but could we be better? Sure. Could we be even ready, more ready than we are now? Yes. But at the same time, the United States and all NATO allies take our Article 5 commitments in the treaty very seriously. And, we practice, we exercise, we have plans, and we have always looking for ways to get stronger and even increase deterrence from where we're at today. So the likelihood of that happening anytime soon, if at all, I think would be very low. But at the same time, I've said this before, Russia is very reckless, and ultimately you can't predict what they will do. The hybrid threats and activities have been, well documented, and so we just need to continue to get stronger and to make sure that we don't demonstrate an inch of weakness, because we're not weak. NATO is not only strong now, but as we continue to implement the 5% commitment from The Hague, I think we're going to be, really not only the strongest alliance in the history of the planet, but really a dramatic force to be reckoned with. Mm-hmm.
We're in the Middle East. The national security strategy talks about, thankfully, a striking word, the US being able to withdraw somewhat from the Middle East. What does that mean, including for the large military base here in Qatar?
Yeah, I think one of the things that we need to appreciate is that a recognition is that the United States cannot be the world's policeman. We cannot be this rapid deployed force that goes everywhere to settle every conflict. We expect our allies to step up. We expect our allies to be strong as well and collaborate and cooperate with the United States. I mean, here in Qatar, obviously, a great ally, probably one of our best allies outside of NATO, if not the best non-NATO ally, and a country that wants to commit to modernizing and making sure that they have the weapons and forces that can be a net security provider. And I think that's what we're looking for. We're looking for our allies to develop themselves, to be interoperable with the United States and our other allies, and that is what's going to be the force multiplier for the United States, so that we don't have to have aircraft carriers and battleships, cruising everywhere at all times, that we can rely on our friends and partners and allies to do some of that heavy lifting as well. And at the same time, the United States provides unique capabilities, and I think we're always going to have those conversations both on a bilateral level, inside of NATO and elsewhere, to talk about who can bring what capabilities, how ready are they. I mean, it's a very sophisticated way of doing things. Only the United States can do it, and we will continue to lead, but we're going to obviously expect others to step up and not just be, hope that the United States shows up, with our Marines or our Army or Air Force or Navy at any given time, just because there's a crisis that could have been resolved at the regional level. So I think for me, the national security strategy, as I've had a chance to digest it just over the last less than 48 hours. I think I woke up yesterday and it was in my inbox.
The world is with you on that. Yes.
Yeah, is a clear-eyed statement of not only the United States continuing to do what it wants to do, but a refocusing again on our priorities. And I said it, it's the homeland.
I just want to be clear though. Are you calling for Middle Eastern countries to spend more on defense?
Yeah, I think the NATO standard is now the worldwide standard. I think the 5% and the formula that we developed is the worldwide standard. I think we expect countries to dramatically increase their own defense capabilities. Obviously, U.S. weapons and munitions are the best. We need to look for co-production opportunities, not only of Patriot missiles, but of all types of weapons and joint ventures. But we also, the thing that we need to collaborate with our friends and allies the most is in dropping the price of a lot of these systems. Because what we've learned from Ukraine, we've learned a lot of lessons. One of the lessons we've learned, I think, is that good enough when you're fighting a war is oftentimes the standard. These exquisite systems just are not going to make sense when you're firing expensive missiles against Shaheds. You're going to lose that money game of war, unfortunately. And so we're going to look for cheaper, attritable air defense. We're going to do it much more effectively and efficiently. And that's what, again, that's going to be the defense and the strength that guarantees and ensures peace.
The ambassador has kindly said he will take a couple of questions, and we're going to squeeze them in.
They have to be good questions, though.
They have to be good ones, and they have to be short. He's short of time. There's one right in the front here.
Thank you, Ambassador. President Trump has this very
Excuse me, would you like to say who you are?
Yes, I'm Gustavo Alegrete. I'm an international reporter and TV anchor. I'm based in Washington, D.C. President Trump has been very tough with Spain, asking the government of Spain to increase from 2 to 5% within the NATO. And the government has been reluctant to do so. Actually, in the opening, we heard this morning from the Foreign Affairs Minister of Spain saying, it's not what you allocate in terms of money, but in terms of delivering what the NATO is asking to the government. And Spain is complying with all what NATO has asked to Spain.
Excuse me, it is a good question, except it's not yet a question. Please, could you get to that bit?
No, you said that the standard is 5%. You have been in Spain recently, as you mentioned.
I was.
What was your message to the Spanish government? Yeah. They have not changed their position so far.
Thank you. Can we get that there? And I'm going to take the woman here in blue.
You're really good at running an efficient ship here.
I have a clock in front of me.
Yes, big congratulations to the moderator. Excellent moderation. Ambassador, Katarzyna Pisarska, I'm the chair of the Warsaw Security Forum, and as you've been so kind to mention, Poland has been spending 2% since starting from 2014 and 5% before it was sexy and expected. And yet, I have to say today in Poland, there is waning confidence that the United States will deliver. We are worried that the type of negotiations the current administration is conducting with Moscow over our heads, negotiations where your administration shows us plans where it is discussed, again, without our presence, where European fighter jets will be located.
Again,
what would you tell
forgive
to
me
the
for all
Poles?
your nice compliments. We're very
what
short.
would you tell today to the Polish society? What would you tell to the Eastern Flank members, which are actually thinking whether America is really committed or is simply selling out Europe?
Thank you.
Both great questions, and I will answer these as efficiently as possible. But now everybody in the room can see what I'm dealing with at NATO.
You're dealing with a lot of European
questions. But first
questions.
of all, I just heard this from Minister Sikorski, a couple of days ago when we had our foreign ministerial in Brussels. So I'm very familiar with, the Polish thoughts on not only the original 28-point plan, which is obviously not what is being discussed right now, and where we're at with our allies and making sure that they either participate or are kept informed on the negotiation. So I'll come back to that. First, I want to talk about Spain because I was just in Spain a couple weeks ago, and I met with senior defense and foreign ministry officials. And what I would tell you, and what I said to them is they are right that it is all about NATO capabilities. We all sat down. The Supreme Allied Commander of Europe sat down and said, if a war breaks out on the continent, this is what you're all bringing to the fight. And Spain has a very clear list of what they need to do. And their position continues to be that it will take them 2% to provide those capabilities. We all agreed to disagree at The Hague, and Spain agreed to the declaration. There was no footnote, no exception for Spain. And so, history will tell. And Spain, I will guarantee you, will have those capabilities. The price tag, we'll find out. Smart people that know how much these capabilities cost say it's going to be more than 2%. But again, time will tell. And I'm excited because Spain has dramatically underspent for years and was probably below 1.5%, that this year they're going to be 2% with an economy that's growing their GDP. And so, I see a lot of great opportunities for Spain to get increased capabilities and be, an equal ally with the rest of us, like they've agreed to in all the documents. On Poland, the United States is a great friend and ally to Poland, both bilaterally and within NATO. I think we are trying to end this war in Ukraine, and oftentimes, you don't go into butcher shop halfway when the sausage is being made and complain that you don't like the looks of the sausage. So I feel like we're all on the same page. With Secretary Rubio involved in the process, I'm fairly confident that all perspectives will be considered. But at the same time, we need to find if there's a deal that can even be made. And I think it's been pretty clearly communicated that whatever was in the 28-point plan, that there are now 4 different streams. There's the NATO work, there's the EU work that have been separated out from the Russia-Ukraine peace process and the U.S.-Ukraine conversations. And those are all happening in real time. But until we have a deal, even at the basic level between Russia and Ukraine, we're just, it's premature, I think, to worry about where European fighter jets are stationed or not. But I will say this, and I think it's pretty clear, and the Secretary General has said this as well. It's very clear that that Russia is not on the North Atlantic Council, doesn't have a vote at the North Atlantic Council. And so, and I don't see any peace deal, changing that dynamic.
Ambassador, we're going to have to stop there. I'm still distracted by your sausage metaphor, because you do get a choice about whether to eat it at the end or not, which is one of the
And Ukraine gets to
serious
decide whether they want
points.
to enter into it. You know, I mean,
Serious points at issue
yeah.
here. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay, we're going to have to stop there. Please join me in thanking the Ambassador.